Governor John Bel Edwards discussed the budget crisis currently facing the state. In his address, Edwards said higher education in my home state could be compromised, specifically citing the possibility of college football being canceled next fall at LSU. Edwards is pushing for tax increases to help make up a $940 million budget deficit by the end of June, saying, quote, "These are not scare tactics. This is reality." Grew up in New Orleans, born and raised. And from a sports standpoint, in that state, it's the Saints and LSU. With all due respect to Southern and Grambling and Louisiana Lafayette and whatnot, or in the local universities in New Orleans. But LSU is huge. It's hard to imagine. And he says it's not scare tactics, that he's serious, and when you read up on it, it sounds dire. The situation sounds dire, because even if they were to make up, hike taxes or make cuts, whatever they have to do,
they'd still be short.
Well, not just that, but then once the next fiscal cycle starts, they're in a $2 billion hole. So these issues are way bigger than football, but just in terms of no LSU football, that's so hard to believe, because in more ways than one, LSU is such an institution in that state. It's just hard to imagine not having LSU football ever. You know what I mean? I can't wrap my mind around that concept.
Yeah, because I can't decide. Even though, like you said, he said it wasn't scare tactics. I can't decide. Did he say this because he wants people to have a deep understanding with how serious the situation is, or to get everybody to stand at attention and say, no, this is the crisis that we're at? I was thinking about this, and I'm not trying to sit up here and be an economics major or or some kind of economist, but in general, I'm wondering at what point will the bubble in sports burst? I mean, that's just all around. In a minute, I know we'll talk about Bryce Harper and him and possibly $400 million, a $400 million contract. But at what point is this bubble going to burst? Because I take it back to before the recession. And you had, with the mortgage crisis, a lot of people getting put in homes that they couldn't afford, and everybody overspent. And we would know it took us years. And some would say we've never been fully back. And for some states, like Louisiana, like Michigan, where I'm from, they never quite recovered in the same way that other states have. So you have Les Miles making over $4 million a year.
They were going to buy him out for $11 million.
And they were going to buy him out for $11 million. But it's just as much of an institution as LSU football is, as it is with a lot of places and a lot of cities and a lot of southern towns. At what point do you reach, can we really afford to keep paying these prices for sports?
Well, LSU, I read that they made $10.5 million. The athletic department made $10.5 million for the academic program. But this, as big as LSU is, this is trivial compared to some of the other issues going on in the state. Because I got a top scholarship when I was going to Loyola, New Orleans. I believe I got a top scholarship. They've cut that. They're cutting health care. They're cutting hospitals. They're cutting, dialysis treatment. They're cutting hospice care. This is literally life and death. And and the governor talked about the Southern University system. I have family and friends that went to SU in Baton Rouge. The University of Louisiana system, the community and technical college system are in the same boat. Without legislators approving new revenue this special session, some campuses will be forced to declare financial bankruptcy, which would include massive layoffs and the cancellation of classes. This is disturbing on so many levels, because you're talking about, football, yes, it's an institution. Yes, it's a pastime. Yes, it makes a lot of money, but ultimately you're talking about higher education and just people's livelihoods or lives suffering because of this budget crisis, which typically Democrats and Republicans can't get together on the same page to figure out how to work it out. I mean, this is scary. It's scary. And Les Miles just got it, and going back to football for a second, Les Miles just got a top 3 recruiting class. They got a Heisman Trophy candidate in Leonard Fournette. And you're telling me that this could have a ripple effect, not just on the lives and generations of Louisiana residents and their families or whatnot. This could have a ripple effect on college football if this is real. This is not him crying wolf. If this is real, what of the recruits? What of the current players? What of the SEC?
Oh, and for that matter, what of the other sports not LSU football? Because it really impacts LSU baseball and LSU softball.
Or LSU basketball.
Or LSU.
What's LSU girl gonna do? What is we gonna do? What is LSU girl gonna do to get rid of her aggression without being able to go to Tigers games?
I wouldn't want to upset her.
Let her talk to the governor. Let Darlene from Roseanne talk to the governor, and I guarantee they'll get this thing figured out. Put her on Capitol Hill.
And then you see other headlines like Dennis Dodd, he wrote a column about Nick Saban on the cusp of making $8 million a year. And that's a little bit different situation because when you look at everything Nick Saban in terms of money and revenue has helped bring to Alabama, you can certainly argue that he was actually underpaid. And I've said that about Tom Izzo, who probably, I believe he may be the highest paid state employee in Michigan. That he brings in what he brings in terms of visibility and funds and all that. And so I understand how sports programs help. But at some point, when you have situations like you talked about, and then you look at the football coach making $4, $5, $6, $7 million a year, it's just, it's understandable. It's just not easy to see.
And it obviously breaks my heart because that's my state.
Yeah.
And my brother went to LSU.
Yeah.
Notice I said went. They have a lot. They party there. He went.
So I've heard.
He was off